The Afghan Interior Ministry says the United States has lifted a $10 million bounty on Taliban leader Sirajuddin Haqqani. The development marks a radical shift for relations between the US and the Taliban government and the completion of a makeover for the man who ranked as a US most wanted terrorist. Here's a report.
For nearly 2 decades, at the height of the US war against the Taliban, the name of Sirajuddin Haqqani inspired dread in Afghanistan. For the world at large, the never-seen Haqqani scion was an angel of death, sending suicide bombers to mercilessly kill American troops and Afghan civilians. The United States made him their most wanted man, slapping a $10 million reward on him. All that, however, changed when the Americans staged a hasty exit from Afghanistan in 2021. As the Taliban assumed power in Afghanistan, the persona of Sirajuddin Haqqani transformed from wanted terrorist to statesman and a diplomat. As the Interior Minister of Afghanistan, in a government known for religious extremism, he became a voice of moderation. In the latest development, the Afghan Interior Ministry says the US has lifted the $10 million bounty on him, although the FBI's website still mentions the bounty. The news about the bounty comes after the Taliban this week released US citizen George Glesman, who was in captivity for 2 years. Abducted while traveling as a tourist in Afghanistan in December 2022, Glesman is the third US detainee freed by the Taliban since January. His release came shortly after former US Special Representative to Afghanistan Zalmay Khalilzad and US hostage envoy Adam Bowler met senior Taliban officials in Kabul. Their meeting marked the highest level direct talks between the United States and the Taliban since President Donald Trump assumed power in the US in January. Currently, no living Afghan Taliban leader carries a US bounty on their head anymore. The latest development comes at a time when reports indicate internal divisions and a power struggle within the Taliban between Sirajuddin Haqqani and Mullah Akhundzada, the supreme leader of the Taliban. In December 2024, Sirajuddin Haqqani's uncle Khalil-ul-Rahman Haqqani was assassinated. The assassination has been seen as part of the ongoing power struggle in the country. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Edward P. Joseph is a lecturer at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and a foreign policy analyst, is now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Joseph, it's been long. Nice to see you again and welcome. What do you make of this development of the U.S. sort of cozying up to the Taliban? What's the significance and especially the timing of the decision to lift the bounty on Haqqani network?
First, Eric, good to be with you again. And I think your question is the right one. It's quite significant. We see here the resumption of direct conversations between the Trump administration and the Taliban. We see the reemergence of the Trump negotiator from the first Trump term. That's Zalmay Khalilzad, who has come in again. He is the one who negotiated the deal with the Taliban that then President Biden executed back in August of 2021. And it's quite significant. We see again the pattern of the Trump administration, actually like the Biden administration before it, of being determined to release Americans that are being held overseas. And that's what we see here. We see that apparently terms were agreed that saw the release of George Glesman, this American who had been held, and we also see now the Taliban hailing this as a step forward in relations with the United States. Please.
Mr. Joseph, the Taliban government has long been seeking recognition and some sort of legitimacy. Do you think this decision is a clear path to that being achieved sooner rather than later, or that's far-fetched?
Eric, I don't think it's so far-fetched. It's not imminent. I don't think it's before us today, but let's look at the comparison with Russia. And let's remember how the Trump administration's outreach to Russia began. Very similarly, it began with a Trump envoy, Steve Witkoff, going to Moscow and securing the release of an American, Mark Fogel, who had been held by the Russians. That release is then what heralded the overtures that we've seen from President Trump towards Russia, of course, over this Russian invasion of Ukraine and the terrible war that has ensued. So the pattern could, of course, continue in Afghanistan. And for the Trump administration, there is an additional incentive here, and that is China and the inroads that China is making with the Taliban, and that is the Trump administration's primary concern, is containing China. Please.
All right. Mr. Edward P. Joseph is a lecturer at the Johns Hopkins University School of Advanced International Studies and also a foreign policy analyst. Mr. Joseph, like I said, it's great to talk to you. Thank you very much for talking to us today.
Likewise. Thank you, Eric.